Okay, so before we begin our program, a few housekeeping points. Please mute yourself for now so that you have any, and if you have any questions as we go on, please put them in the chat. At the end of the interview, we'll go through the chat questions and any remarks, and then you would have your turn to raise your hand, which is up at the right-hand corner, I believe, where you can raise your hand to ask any further questions you may still have. Now, a little bit about Friends of the Logan Square Library. We're an all-volunteer group created to support the Logan Square Library. We have held book sales and plant sales and have donation buttons on several online sites, so we hope you'll look for us. We are a 501c3, a not-for-profit organization. So that's a good thing. We encourage you to join us, which is as simple as leaving your email in the chat tonight, and then you will be added to our mailing list. And from the mailing list, you'll be able to join our monthly Zoom meetings. Right now, they're all Zoom. Or if you so wish, you can help out with organizing and publicizing our events. Or if you just wish to put your email in and attend an event, you will be informed of what events we will be having soon coming up. March 15th is our first event coming up, that's for sure. March 15th, End of Life Planning, and this will be presented by a woman from Compassion and Choices. Then upcoming on May 17th, we have a scavenger by Jessica, I'm not sure how to say the last name, Milnick? Anyway, she's the author of Chicago Scavenger and Secret Chicago, which is a guide to the weird and wonderful and obscure. This is going to be an interactive program exploring Chicago neighborhoods in a scavenger hunt style. We will be deciphering clues and track down photos leading to weird, wonderful, and obscure Chicago locations in our beautiful city of Chicago. And then coming up after that would be October 18th, who will be the author of Arsenic and Adobo. That's Mina Manansala. And she will be having a new book, a third book coming out in October. So she'll be able to talk about the two books that she has out presently and her new book coming out. So be sure to mark your calendars for March 15th, May 17th, and October 18th, and add your email to the chat to receive more information as we approach those dates. If you're interested in some of our past events and programs, I'll be glad to list some of those at the end of this presentation. And now, Friends of Logan Square Library is proud to invite Mina to join us. I'm Lassell, and I'll be interviewing our guests this evening. Welcome, Mina.
Thank you so much for having me.
Good. My first question is a general question. Can you tell us a little bit about Block Club, how it got started?
Yeah, absolutely. So Block Club started out of the ashes of DNAinfo. If you're not familiar with DNAinfo, a neighborhood news website that ran from, I think it started in 2014, 2013 or 2014. I can't totally recall which, but it ran for several years, and I was a reporter there. We had an office in Chicago, an office in New York. And in 2017, our owner decided to shut down the two sites. It came about a week after the New York staff was had gathered enough support to unionize their staff. So it was a devastating moment for us, our staff. For me personally, it was, I mean, I remember that day so well, pulling up the website and just seeing the letter from our owner saying that, that we weren't going to be publishing anymore. It was tough. But I was really lucky in that, like, really right as soon as that happened, 3 editors at DNAinfo said, like, we really need to start our own thing. We think we can do this. We think we can do it even better than we did it at DNA. We know there's a huge need for this type of news in Chicago and elsewhere, but certainly in Chicago, we'd proven with DNAinfo that there was a huge need for it and demand for it. So they just got to work, like within the few months after DNAinfo shut down, they were in coffee shops, on the phone 12 hours a day, trying to figure out how to make neighborhood news sustainable. And they brought me along for the ride. So that was really exciting. I was like, looking for other jobs, not sure what I was going to do next. And they brought me in and they were like, we want you to be a founding reporter and kind of go along on this adventure with us. And I was like, yes, let's do it. Because I believed so much in DNA and what we were doing there. And I thought, like, they had thought at the time that we could do it even better than we had been doing it.
Do they have, I don't know if it's called a mission statement, but do they have a goal?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to sum it up. I think with Block Club, we are, I think in a lot of newsrooms, not just in Chicago, but in other places too, people, work downtown, they're at their desks, and they get their stories that way. They're on the phone all day. We've always believed that that's not where you get the best stories. Where you get the best stories is out on the ground, talking to people, going to community meetings, going to police meetings, walking the streets, literally just noticing things and just getting to know people in the area that you cover. So that's always been our mission, is on the ground reporting, that we feel like really has been lost over the last few decades. So that's probably, that's very long-winded, but that's probably like the crux of what we do is that on the ground neighborhood reporting that really sets us apart from other newsrooms.
So then that sounds to me like it started back with DNA, and your mission has basically stayed pretty close to the same.
It has stayed mostly the same. It really has. Yeah, the core of our mission has stayed the same, but it's very different what we're doing now because we have a completely different business model. We're a nonprofit now. We used to be a for-profit company, which meant that we sold ads. That's how we survived. Now we're a nonprofit. So we get our money through subscriptions, through donations, and through grants. So we're a completely different business model. And through that, we're really able to, I think, serve the neighborhoods even better. Because we're not beholden to one billionaire investor like we were before. We're answering to everyone in the neighborhood, the people that are the subscribers to what we're doing.
Oh, good. I have a t-shirt
I
and I subscribe.
Thank you.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born and raised? What's your educational background?
Yeah, well, mostly from Chicago suburbs, the North Shore, Highland Park. Yeah, I grew up there and went to college for 1 year in Massachusetts. That didn't work out, so I ended up coming back to Chicago in like 2008 or 2009 and went to Columbia College. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do at all. I was not a kid that was always like, I want to be a firefighter, or I want to be a journalist. Like I didn't really know what I wanted to do, to be honest. But I knew that I liked writing and I knew that I liked talking to people. And those two things really lend themselves to journalism. So when I got to Columbia, I joined the student newspaper there. And that's when things really clicked for me. And I was like, all right, this is really what I want to do. So the student newspaper is really what kind of crystallized journalism for me. And yeah, but growing up, I wasn't like a kid who was like, you know, like a prodigy or anything like that at like a school paper. Like I was just finding my way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Since we're in the library, I have to ask if you have any favorite books or a favorite genre.
Man, favorite books. Favorite books is tough. I read a lot. I can tell you what I'm reading right now.
Okay.
I'm reading a book called Pew by Catherine Lacey that came out a few years ago. It's really, really good. I gravitate towards all sorts of fiction. Really like no like specific story. Just you know, for a while I was like really into Japanese authors, but I really like all sorts of fiction and kind of am open to anything. And what's been helping me is I have 2 book clubs that I'm in right now, and that is very motivating.
Yeah, yeah.
Because otherwise it could be tough to put everything.
Yeah. So you kind of told us how you got into journalism. Was it with Columbia's newspapers?
Yes, that's absolutely how I got into journalism. Yeah.
And you got into book club through DNA. How'd you get into DNA?
So DNA, that was an interesting turn of events. What had happened was I graduated from Columbia with a degree in magazine journalism. For a year, I worked at this place called Forbes Travel Guide, which I don't know if it's still around or not, but they essentially do write-ups of like fancy hotels and restaurants in the city, or at least they did. So I did that for about a year and really didn't like it. Sorry to Forbes Travel Guide people. And was kind of doubting my career path. It's like, do I really want to do this? If this is the way it's going to be, I don't want to be a journalist. And it wasn't really journalism, but if this is like the only job I can get, I don't know if I want to do this. So then I decided to work at Groupon of all places for a few years, just kind of like, I need to make a paycheck. I need to have health insurance because I wasn't getting any health insurance with Forbes. So I did that for a few years and great people there, but hated the job as well. And then it was like, after that, towards the end, I was like, I know I really want to be a journalist. I think that's what I really want to do. So I started freelancing for a few different publications. Gapers Block, I don't know if you remember Gapers Block, they've closed or shut down, and a couple other places. And then I had a friend who was a reporter at DNAinfo, who I went to college with, who's a good friend of mine. And he was like, you should come in and interview for, we used to call them runners positions, which meant that like you're available at all times to run anywhere you're asked to go around the city. So it's essentially a general assignment reporter, but we would call them runners. And I was nervous because I hadn't done anything like that before, but I got the job and it was like one of the coolest, best experiences I had. And then after I did the runner position, I, did a bunch of different things there.
Oh. Well, how did you get assigned to Logan Square?
So I've lived in Logan Square for a really long time. And when I joined DNAinfo, I was like, I want to cover Logan Square. It just, at the time there was someone covering it. They were doing a really good job. There wasn't a vacancy, so I couldn't cover it. But they always, like my editors always knew that, Mina wants Logan Square as soon as it's open. So yeah, eventually it opened up and I was the first one, in line to get it. I covered Uptown for a while, then I covered Lincoln Park and Old Town. No regrets that they were awesome to cover and I learned so much doing it, but I was always itching to get to Logan Square because I've lived here for, and I think it's been like 12 years now or so.
Okay, well, thank you for all that personal information because it's always nice to know a little bit more about the person I'm interviewing and that we're all interested in. To go on to more about Block Club and what you do, how do you get your news stories? Do they come to you? Do you go to them?
It's a combination of those two. Sometimes people reach out, call me, email me, send me letters, mostly calling or email, and ask if I want to cover something, whether that's like a new development or a new business that's opening, or someone who's been a victim of a crime who wants to raise awareness about that. So oftentimes that's what happens, but then there's the other side of it. I really think it's 50-50. Half the time I either I notice something while I'm in the neighborhood, or I have really good relationships with people who are kind of in the know in the neighborhood, and usually I'm asking them like, what's going on? Tell me what's going on with this development, or this, or crime in this pocket of the neighborhood, or something political, or I'm always asking like what's going on, what's new, to the people that I know, and trying to get stories that way. But also, yeah, purely noticing things. That happens a lot, where it's just like, well, here's a business permit on a window. That's the story. There's a new business moving in, or something as small as that, but as big as I don't know. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but it's a combination of things. Yeah.
What were some of your biggest scoops?
Oh man, this is a tough one. I mean, I guess it's subjective, like what people think are my biggest stories and what I think are my biggest stories. But I think most people know me for the Chance the Snapper story out of Humboldt Park.
Oh yeah, that's one of the T-shirts I have with the alligator.
I don't think I'll ever get away from that story for the rest of my life, which is good. It's fine. It was such a wonderful story to cover. Yeah.
Did you do the Marine Academy one, or was that somebody else?
I did. I covered Marine Academy. Yeah,
because that went big.
Yeah, there's a huge story out of Marine Leadership Academy in Logan Square, a sex abuse scandal that led to the firing of 12 people within the school. That was a big story out of the neighborhood.
How did you ever find out about that?
That one through teachers.
Secret sources.
Secret sources, but also at that point, I think that CPS. So I can't remember if it was CPS or someone had put something out that was like official. That one I wouldn't say was a scoop, because a lot of other outlets were on that one. But there have been a lot of other stories that I was early on. Like I've written about the feud between Alderman Carlos Ramirez Rosa and Mark Fishman, the landlord that everyone knows very well. I've written about that extensively, and those have all been scoops through various sources. At one point, the alderman was renting an office from Fishman, and they were having a disagreement, and Fishman kicked him out of the office that he was renting, and so there was a lot of drama back and forth. All sorts of stuff. Mark Fishman to a Tribune, to a Sun-Times. Like we have a bunch of editors that read, that fact check, we talk through stories. It's not like me just writing a story and then it just gets published. Like there's a lot of work that goes into each piece, and it's not just me.
I was wondering.
Yeah, and they vet our story ideas too. So I pitch stories every morning.
Now, is this all done online, or do you go in to meet together? Or
mostly done online, especially during the pandemic. But that's part of like the mission that we were talking about earlier. Is we really want reporters to be out in the neighborhoods. I happen to live in Logan Square, so I can work from home, but I'm out about in the neighborhood a lot. We don't want reporters that are all downtown in an office. That doesn't jive with our mission.
This next question you may have answered. Do you collaborate with the editor or co-founders? Because I've noticed that sometimes they'll say, Jen so-and-so is a co-founder. And do they decide independently of you as to what goes in?
Yes, we collaborate sometimes, but not like I get a lot of help if I'm, for example, working on a breaking news story and I'm out in the field, and let's say I'm talking to, I'm interviewing someone about, and this is a horrible example, but someone's house is on fire and I'm interviewing them about their home, and I'm talking to the firefighters, I'm talking to the police on the scene. I can't be writing the story at the same time. That just doesn't work. So I'll send off notes. We call that string. And then sometimes editors will put the stories together. Like they'll write the stories and post it. And we'll work together, and we'll be like, is this how you want it phrased? Is this accurate? And then we'll work together. So that happens quite a bit when there's a breaking story. And then investigations too. We work really closely with editors and talk through, who do we need to contact for this, and how do we structure this? And so it's very collaborative.
Now, if you happen to, through your sources, whatever, happen to hear of something newsworthy in Bronzeville or Lakeview or somewhere that's not your beat, how do you handle that?
Just simply pass them along to the right reporter. We have reporters in so much of the city now, which is amazing. So yeah, if there's something happening in Bronzeville, I'll say, we have a reporter in Bronzeville. I'm gonna call her, email her, get information to her, and see if she'll cover. And so we're able to like connect with other reporters.
Do you ever meet them? I mean, or is it all online?
The other reporters?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we see each other. we get together. We have social like events. I mean, before the pandemic, really mostly, but yeah, we've had meetings, and we'll have meetings in the office. We're supposed to have a meeting soon. I know all the reporters; they're all amazing. So we're all friends. We do mostly communicate via Slack nowadays, which is kind of sad, but yeah, we all and over the phone, but we all like know each other, and it's not like I'm like, who is this person I'm sending this story idea to? Like, I know everybody.
Oh, that's fun.
Yeah.
What about other news sources like WBEZ or Nextdoor? It just really isn't a news thing,
No,
Nextdoor, but do you ever collaborate with other sources like that?
Yeah, I know that we publish a lot of nonprofit news outlets work on our site in partnership, which has been amazing. So for example, like we'll work with ProPublica or WBEZ, and we'll publish their story on our site. And it's been this amazing collaboration because they're reaching people they might not have reached had they not partnered with us. And then we're getting their work out, their amazing work out. Oftentimes these are investigations and things that they've worked on for a long time. So they want as many eyeballs as possible. And we want to do more collaborations. Like we've got a lot of ideas. There's an amazing thing happening in Chicago. I don't know if all of you know this, but the nonprofit news landscape in Chicago is incredible. And there's just a lot of really amazing energy around it. And I think people are finally starting to realize it, but everybody wants the best for each other, and everybody wants, everybody loves the city, and it's kind of amazing and beautiful. Not every city has this. We're very lucky.
That's good. How has the pandemic affected your work?
Oh man, so much. I mean, I remember when the pandemic first started, and it was I, like everyone else, I thought that it was going to be like a 2-week thing, but it completely altered my personal life and also my professional life. Before the pandemic, one of the things we pride ourselves on is like being out in the neighborhoods, going to community meetings, having FaceTime like with people all of the time, and that just stopped all of a sudden. And that was it was really hard. Like all of a sudden we weren't getting the same kinds of stories because we weren't doing the same kinds of networking and reporting that we were used to. And that's changed over time. We have vaccines, certainly after Omicron, the surge is over. So that's helped. But it's been rocky over the last few years, just really getting the FaceTime that we used to have with sources and with neighbors. But then also the pandemic has impacted everything. Every piece that I write now in one way or another is related to the pandemic, because every part of our lives are, related to the like we can't tear away from the pandemic and its impact at this point. So it's just become just completely pervasive, and the other thing too is that I'm just rattling this off, but a lot of what we've done is report on small businesses, and we've just been inundated with small business owners who are like, we are in a crisis, it's horrible, we need help, we need your help, promoting our business. And that's been just wild to be on the receiving end of And we do, we do write about small businesses, continue to write about small businesses, but just the sheer volume of small business owners who are struggling, who have been over the last couple of years.
Yeah, I noticed most of your articles about businesses focus on the people.
Yes, we really try and focus on the people. I'm glad that you noticed that.
Why they're going under, why they're closing, or why they're opening.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
In your opinion, what is the future of journalism and the news sources?
The future of journalism. I think that
Well, take one at a time.
Yeah,
I mean, a newspaper, for instance.
Well,
I read a newspaper in the morning, and I like a paper newspaper.
Me too. I am really hopeful, actually. I think that, like I was saying earlier, what's happening in Chicago is amazing. It's amazing to be a part of, but it's also amazing to just watch. And there are so many outlets here that are doing innovative things. I mean, we have, ProPublica, WBEZ, these are sort of like more legacy outlets, but then, we have City Bureau, which is, relatively fresh. And we've got, I don't know, somebody, I'm like blanking. We have so many, we have the Better Government Association. We have Chalkbeat, who covers schools. We have like all these different media organizations that are relatively new, and Block Club, of course.
A lot of them are online.
And a lot of them are online. And we just learned, I think, through all of this, that there's still like a really strong appetite for news and like really well reported news and interesting stories. Like, I don't think that's going away. I don't think that will ever go away. I think it's just a matter of like meeting people where they are, and where a lot of people are is online. But that's not to say that I think the newspapers are going anywhere, because I don't. I'm really hopeful. I think that journalism is going through a renaissance in Chicago, and I think that is going to have a ripple effect.
You touched on this, but I'm going to ask it again. Is Block Club, what are the sources of income that support Block Club?
Yeah, so we are, because we're a nonprofit, and we're subscription based. We get our money through subscriptions, yearly and monthly subscriptions. That's a huge piece of the pie chart. We also get our money, because we're a nonprofit, through grants. We just got a huge grant from the American Journalism Project, which is amazing and will allow us to hire several new people and really grow the business side. So, the grants, the donations, and I'm going all out of order, but the grants, donations, and the subscriptions, that's our pie chart. Whereas before, like I said, with DNAinfo, it was all ad revenue. So we don't have any ads. I know we do work with businesses a little bit on the newsletters, because you'll see some tiny ads, but they don't make up a large share of our revenue.
When I was looking at the founders, the question came to mind: is this, or was it started as a women's news source, or are women strong in Block Club, or are they a pretty fair mix with men and women reporters? Or
it wasn't just started by women. We had two women founders. We had Stephanie Lulay, Jen Sabella, and Seamus Toomey are the three founders. So not all women, but we have a lot of women on staff. And I think with Block Club, we have recognized that newsrooms don't reflect the communities that they cover, and that frankly, that was certainly the case at DNAinfo. And so we're making a concerted effort to change that with Block Club. And so we want a diverse group of reporters because we live in an amazing, diverse city.
So, well, let's see, we're getting close to the end here. To think about Logan Square, you've been covering it. I didn't realize how long since with DNA. And what do you think is happening with Logan Square? That's a broad question.
Wow, what a question. What's happening with Logan Square? Like, what do you think the biggest issue? What do I think the biggest issue?
Yeah, what would be the biggest?
I think the issue that I write the most about, that I talk the most about with residents and elected officials and all sorts of people that I interview is gentrification. That's the thing that comes up the most, and that comes in many forms. Gentrification impacts, and the sort of changing demographics of our neighborhood impacts every facet of life. That's, the public schools, the level of crime, all sorts of things. So gentrification, like COVID, like the pandemic, it kind of creeps into every story that I do about Logan Square, because it's so much a part of what's going on in this neighborhood. This neighborhood has changed so much in the last 20 years. And that is not, that's not stopping anytime soon. It's only accelerated. So I think that would definitely be the number one, and I don't want to say issue, that's not the right word, but the number one sort of topic that I encounter when I'm reporting on Logan Square.
Well, I live close to the 606 and the trail. And a lot of my neighbors have been here a long time. And they often tell me, oh, crime was worse back 40 years ago. Then it got better and now it's getting worse again. What do you think about crime?
Yeah.
I mean, this is just my local neighbors.
Yeah, no, that's valid. Through my reporting and through reporting that my colleagues have done at Block Club, violent crime, particularly violent crime, is up across the city during the pandemic. Neighborhoods that were not seeing levels of crime, we're not seeing like shootings and carjackings, like downtown, for example, huge surge downtown of those types of crimes. So gun-related crimes are up everywhere. So that's an important context, I think. Like we do have more gun-related crimes in Logan Square, but we also have more gun-related crimes in other parts of the city too. So I would just, that's the context that I would put it in for your neighbor. And I just wrote a story about homicides and carjackings being up in Logan Square. And like I said, it's really just part of a larger trend across the city that's extremely unfortunate.
And I just said that you wrote an article, and I was going to say that my observation with Block Club is that they don't cover a lot of the crime.
That's interesting. Well, I think that's interesting. I think we've talked a lot about what we want our crime coverage to look like. And it's, we all live in Chicago, so we're all aware of what our reputation is, right? That there's just bullets flying everywhere. And we know that that's not true, but we also know that the level of violence is unacceptable in all parts of the city. So both of those things can be true at the same time. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough.
So part of your, like, when we went back earlier, talked about mission statement, isn't to put Logan Square in a positive light. I mean, you do try to cover.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. I mean, I'm covering the good and the bad and the ugly in Logan Square, whether that's a shooting, whether that's a school that gets a big award, or whatever it may be. I'm going to be there. So we're not only, painting a flattering portrait of the neighborhoods. That's definitely not what we're doing. But as I was kind of trying to get out before, there are neighborhoods in the city that have struggled with violent crime for many, many years. And now we're starting to see places like downtown and places that didn't have, as many shootings all of a sudden get a lot of violence. But we are extremely careful not to paint those neighborhoods as just being violent. And so, and I think I think that maybe without even like unintentionally, some news outlets do, only cover the shootings or the carjackings out of Inglewood, for example. And that is not Inglewood. Inglewood is an amazing neighborhood with amazing people doing amazing things. And so I just think we're trying to sort of broaden, how we see the neighborhood so that we can put that on display for other people, and show, that neighborhoods that you maybe have come to associate with crime, that they're not, that's not them. There's so much more to these neighborhoods. And so that's probably why you won't see a ton of crime reporting from our Inglewood reporter, for example, because we make a concerted effort not to do that.
To balance.
Exactly,
Yeah.
to balance. And that doesn't mean that we're not going to be covering crime out of Inglewood, but it just means that that's not the only thing we're going to be covering out of Inglewood.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I see we have only about 3 minutes left. So can you leave us with any words of wisdom, suggestions, hope, advice? Many of us, I imagine, are local Logan Square residents. So,
Yeah.
and you see it all.
Yeah. Words of wisdom. I think, I mean, I can't stress this enough. Like, we have something special in Chicago. There are amazing newsrooms that are committed to doing this work right. And I consider us to be one of those newsrooms. And I would just encourage you that, like, if you think this work is important, to get involved, and if you can subscribe or even just tell your friends about it, because it is so important that we're holding local politicians accountable, that we're holding local developers accountable, all these people accountable. And if I don't write about it, it's probably not going to get written about. So if you care about your neighborhood, definitely tell your friends about us. But also, yeah, I mean, just going back to what I was saying before, like, we're just incredibly lucky. There's a lot of really good journalism happening in this city. And I just don't think that, I think like so much of what we hear is that journalism is dying. And I don't think that's true. I think that that people are never going to be not wanting to know more about where they live. And I think that we're just going to keep adapting to, the changes like we adapted before when things went online. We'll just keep adapting to that. So I don't think journalism is dying, and I think Chicago is a great place to get your news. Yeah.
Well, very upbeat. You make me feel upbeat.
Good.
So let's go to the chat and have Libby tell us.
We have two. Patrick, who's online, submitted 2 questions. One was, what's Mina's favorite thing about Logan Square?
Huh?
Oh, okay. My favorite thing about Logan Square, I think just that it has everything. Like, it has the boulevards, which I think are amazing. This like kind of green leafy feel, and it has amazing parks, but it also has like amazing art too. Really cool, like artists, like, hairpin and different places that are like doing these really amazing installations and works of art. And then also that it has amazing restaurants. Like, it kind of has everything you would want in a Chicago neighborhood. So I think all those things in one. Yeah.
The other question,
Transportation.
And transportation, yeah, and having the Blue Line. Absolutely, that's huge. We really just kind of have it all here.
The other question was, how do you approach the writing process?
Oh boy. As my husband knows, like sometimes it comes like really easy and sometimes it doesn't come easy at all. Like sometimes I'm like banging my head against the wall. I think, uh, I mean, everyone does it differently. I think that I really think about like what I want we call it the nut graph in journalism, like what I want the crux of the story to be first, thinking through it before I even like get to the page. And that helps me. I also think that like just generally thinking about how I want the story to be structured helps me a lot. And like even like kind of roughly outlining it. I don't always do that, but that can help me a lot. Usually I just dive in and just like see what happens. I don't know. Like I don't know. It's not always very organized, but sometimes it's like so easy. It's like, oh, they could do this in like 20 minutes. And other times I'm just like, I don't know. This is tough. I got to really think of a good lead because I'm struggling. So it's different day to day.
All right, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 14 of us.
Nice.
So let's have some questions. Anybody have
And it's okay
questions?
if you're
Or
like,
if you're at home, you can raise your hand by the little hand guy up on the right-hand corner.
Yeah.
Yes.
You touched on it a little bit with the conversation about the nonprofit sort of ecosystem. And I think that sometimes that may be easy and really encouraging for me as a news consumer.
Yeah.
But what, like it doesn't just take news producers, it takes news consumers getting involved. And, aside from giving money to Block Club every month, like what does it really mean for Chicagoans to get involved in the production of news for us? In that nonprofit ecosphere, rather than just, because you're right, it doesn't exist in every city, and in fact, it exists in very few cities.
Yeah.
We're quite lucky to have it as Chicagoans, as lucky as we are to have the boulevard or the lake. What does it mean for Chicagoans to really get involved in the news?
That's a really amazing question. I mean, aside from just subscribing or donating, which are very meaningful ways to get involved,
Yeah.
trust me. But aside from those things, I think just engaging with reporters, like if you're like, I want to be a part of this ecosystem, I think, following even just like maybe you don't have the money to subscribe, totally fine. Just following like local reporters on social media and asking questions about their coverage and and giving them constructive criticism too, like we need that. Just like being more involved and engaged, I think is really meaningful. I'm trying to think of anything else.
Now, is your email or way to contact you at the bottom of every one of your newsletters, or?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah.
I think that's how
Yeah.
I contact you.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yes, it should be in there.
So
yeah.
if you want to contact her, just check on.
Right,
Block Club.
yeah, you can just, and I'm all over like I'm on my Twitter and my like cell phone number is on my Twitter too, so you can text me, call, yeah, you can, any way you can get a hold of me, you should do it. But I think that's important because there's so much distrust too, in parts of the city, but really all over, of the media, in part because of our former president, but it was something that was brewing before him too. And I think that the more we can do to work together to get out like quality news and to make it really good, solid coverage, the better. And I think that kind of starts with, if you didn't like a story that we did, being like, hey, here's why I didn't like it, and here's how I think you should do it next time. Like, I think that could be really, really meaningful as a news consumer, because you're going to make it better. And we're super receptive to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
You kind of talked about editorial focus on balancing crime and other stories about neighborhoods, but one of the things I'm curious about, there's certainly been an uptick, statistically in violence, which you also touched on, during the last, say 6 to 8 months. Have you seen like a marked increase in the amount of people reaching out to you within the community
Hmm.
voicing concern over this or wanting more coverage for this?
with just specifically related to crime.
Yeah,
I haven't really, which is interesting because like you said, there has been an uptick in crime, but I haven't really. Part of that might be because we don't have a comment section on our website, which we do by design because it was a really scary place at DNAinfo, frankly. But yeah, I really haven't heard from more people wanting more crime coverage. I will say just related to that, we've been talking about ways to bolster our crime coverage or to really like find the shape of it. And we're going to be working on that a lot more this year. Like we're hoping to like engage with readers about like, what do you want to see in your crime coverage? Like what's missing or what do you want less of? So I think that's going to be really good this year. We'll see.
just a quick follow-up, sorry. On the interaction, you don't have a comment section on your website, but you do have comments obviously on Facebook posts. Is that something that you're looking at consistently?
Yeah, totally. We look at them. Again, it can be a little scary, but is what we definitely look at them. We're, like we want to know like what our readers care about. What do you want to read about? But we also want to cover the news in a, really responsible way. So like balancing those two things is really important to us. But people comment all the time being like, people say like, why did you cover this? Or why didn't you cover this other thing? And why are you covering this story? And not like the shooting that happened on my block and things like that. I mean, that does happen. But for the most part, I will say, just related to all this, our readers have been extremely receptive, to good news stories out of neighborhoods that typically don't get them. So that's been amazing to see. And so we're gonna, we believe really strongly in that, and we're gonna keep going on that. But yeah, people who are used to only hearing about shootings and carjackings in their neighborhood, people love hearing about, what's going on at their local school, and they deserve that, and we all deserve that. So I think it's interesting because I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about the fact that crime has gone up, but we haven't really heard from more people who want crime coverage. I don't know.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
can say as a consumer and as someone who works in one of the community areas that often, I work in Austin.
Oh, okay.
And so it's often given a very specific narrative.
Yeah.
I very much appreciate that most of the coverage is not about the same narrative. And if anything, I feel like what Black Club does well is like, if there is a story about violence within the community, is that it's still very human centered and not just like, here's some statistics, that I think that does add to this like fear mongering that we like can often tell about communities. And as someone who works there, it's like really nice for me to learn about like, oh, I didn't know that this new place opened down the street, or that this new like entrepreneur is trying to like launch something. And so I think that like that is very much like the local news we need to hear, is those stories of like those people who are kind of working against that like common narrative that we like blast out through a lot of like kind of like
Yeah. Thank you so much. I totally agree.
Well, thanks for having us talk. I was wondering if you can talk about like the labor aspect of it, like unionized, if there's any organizing going on. Like these last 2 years have just been such a wild ride for union membership, and then we have the reader right now.
Yeah.
That if it were not for the union, like the debacle that's going on with their funders, would be probably handled a lot differently.
Yeah.
And so I'm wondering if there are like similar like concerns going on at Black Club with like the private donors who do fund the paper, who without them the paper might not exist. Just because of the way media is funded these days. There's no ad revenue. Yeah, I think we can talk about that.
Yeah, that's a great question. So in short, there's no labor struggle at Block Club. There hasn't been. You know, of course, I don't have a crystal ball. I can't predict the future. I mean, who knows what will happen? But you know, because we're this nonprofit, and I know the Reader, for example, is like, you know, fighting to be a nonprofit. We're already there. So we're in this like really unique, well, not as unique in Chicago as I know I've said a million times, but we're in this like really great spot because we're not beholden to one guy. So that's really helped us in so many ways. And I mean, you know, certainly like the pandemic has taken a toll on not just the reporters, but the founders, and every person who's in our organization has, you know, struggled, not like truly like personally, emotionally, you know, in addition to professionally. And the thing that I think is so great about Block Club is like, we're just like, it's so cheesy, but like, we're all in it together, and we're all like very much a family. Like it is like an incredible family atmosphere where we're very supportive of each other. Again, I don't know what's going to happen in the future, but for now, there's no labor struggle, and we just like are just praying that the Reader like gets to a good place. And like, you know, we're all huge fans of the Reader, and we want them to get what they deserve. So yeah. Hi.
Long time fan, first time listener. So I know you've been doing this for a really long time before Block Club even was Block Club with DNAinfo. What do you think you do better now, or have realized now that you're X number of years into the job?
Oh, that's interesting. What do I do better now? Well, I think like any beat reporter, like I've just gotten to know my beat so well that like it's like I kind of like, as soon as a story pops up, I'm like, oh, I could like reach out to this person, because I know so many more people now than I used to. That's not necessarily something that I've like a skill I've honed, though. That's just like comes along with being a beat reporter. I don't know. I think I just like, as a journalist, I kind of can see a shape of a story better than I used to be able to. Like even as I'm reporting it, I can kind of visualize how I want the story to read. I think that just comes with practice. Definitely taking pictures. I've gotten better at that. I was really bad at first. I'm still not great, but I can, you know, I'm better. What else? I mean, like one thing that I always tell like younger reporters than me is that like the thing that I have like had success doing is just asking, well, making things very human-centered, as we talked about, which is huge focus of Block Club, but also like asking like for really specific annoying details. Like I've gotten way better at that, and I think that always like creates a much more dynamic, vibrant story when you're like, instead of saying, you know, writing like this person lived in a house on Kimball Avenue, you could say like this person lived in, you know, a brick, you know, 2-flat from the 1890s or whatever. You know, it just like really like brings life to any story. So I try and ask, like, usually people kind of, not usually, but sometimes people will be like, well, why do you want to know this like really random thing? But I think it makes reporting better. I don't know, but those things for sure. And then just like reporting in general, I think I'm better at asking just questions that, you know, and particularly like with elected officials and people who hold power, I'm better at asking like more direct questions. Why did you do this? How are you doing this? Like versus like these questions that you often hear that like go in circles, like those don't usually produce very good answers and therefore not very good stories. So I've gotten better at that over the years. Yeah.
Club, so you have the different writers for each kind of community areas or collection of communities. So there's like the community specific newsletters, and then there's the main ones, like just how that like negotiation happens of what's or which ones to say in the community.
Yeah, that was one that Rhea was asking. Yeah. So the neighborhood newsletters, well, we have a fantastic person on staff who like does all the newsletters. Her name's Hannah. She's she works with each reporter on their newsletter, and like we collaborate. We're like, we think this should be the lead story on today's newsletter. This should come second. This should come third. Just in order of like what people frankly have been clicking on. Like we can look at what what the stats are, but not even just that too. Like what are like the stories that we put a lot of energy into, stories that that we think people will really resonate with, that we think will resonate with people. So we work collaboratively with Hannah on that, and then with the main newsletter, it's the same kind of thing. We're just not the neighborhood reporters aren't involved with that really. Our editors and Hannah will go through and be like, this is the most important story of the day, so this is going to be the lead. These are going to be the next ones, and it kind of is just different day to day, and just kind of having that news judgment that's so important. Really, is like critical to that process.
I have a question. I'm gratified that a lot of the questions I had were already done. So I just wanted to ask, is there, so we talked about how this business model, as if we're going to call it that, nonprofit model of covering the city, seems to work. It's got a mojo of its own now. Is there any indication on that you've seen anyone ask, could this be a prototype for other places? Because I know it's desperately needed elsewhere.
Yeah.
Imagine being in a region where there's only one highly biased source and most Americans I think live in an ecosystem like that. So
Right.
how come or is it at that point?
No, that's a great question. I mean, if it were up to us, I think we'd, we love Chicago, we're focused on Chicago, but like, we think that this model really works. So I think if it were, if there was no barriers to getting it out to other cities, we would do it. There are barriers to getting it out to other cities, obviously. But I think that, so far we've had a good amount of success, like sharing our story, through national publications, or at conferences or different like journalism events, and like really trying to push out our model because we think that it works really well. And we've seen a lot of success. I haven't even really talked about like the growth that we've seen over the last few years, but it's been amazing, like completely exceeding our expectations. Like every time we, announce like a goal for subscribers, like we hit it. And now I think we're at, I don't know, Ariel, you'll have to tell me, are we like 19,000, something like that? Yeah. So, and this is like just a little fun tidbit is like, when DNAinfo shut down, I know somebody, I might get in trouble for saying this. I know somebody said like, if you get 20,000 subscribers, you're going to be in a good space. Like was kind of a magic number when we first launched, like in terms of like the financial operations. So we are not stopping at 20,000. That is not that's not what we're doing, but just to put it in perspective. And now I lost my train of thought, but other cities. Yeah, I mean, I think we're sharing our story as much as we can. And I agree that I think it would be amazing to spread it to other places that, are big cities that don't already have this amazing ecosystem. There are so many places, like you said, that could really use something like this. So who knows? I mean, the sky's the limit. I would love to bring this to other places. And it could certainly happen. We're trying to like cover every corner of Chicago before that happens. That is our goal. And forget the 20,000 thing. That's not where we're stopping.
Do we have any more online?
No, but I have a question.
Yeah.
I think you read the Chicago 15 minutes.
Oh yeah.
So what's the impression of the week? And my impression is it's like more ads.
Mhm.
They eliminated the section. And now that
Right,
custody is
Mhm.
increasing.
You really be tired of
I don't have any like privileged information about Rex Hupke, but I know a lot of big names have left in the last couple of years, and it's devastating. It's really hard to watch. You know, they're having a big labor struggle. Like this like a really difficult time for the Tribune, and I think that they'll come out of this, but it is hard to see so many names that I've read over the years leaving the paper, and you know, no one can, you know, we have again Block Club and so many other organizations are so innovative and fresh, but like the Tribune is the Tribune. I mean, it's an amazing institution, and like we have to protect it. And so, you know, and we're all in this together. So yeah, I mean, I don't have any information about Rex, but I've definitely been reading about what's been going on over there. I have friends that are reporters at the Tribune who have taken buyouts. It's really tough. I don't know, but you know, hopefully things will get better. I don't know.
Well, we're about out of time, so I would remind everyone to put on their calendars the upcoming events of the Friends of Logan Square. And the definite ones that are on our calendar are March 15th for the end of life planning, May 17th, which is the interactive program that's similar to a scavenger hunt. And then October 18th, the author of Arsenic and Adobo. So please stick with us, put your email into the chat if you'd like to get further information from us. And thank you for coming tonight.
Thanks, everybody. Help yourself to a bookmark if you want. Always use another bookmark.
Especially in the library.
Yeah, especially, yeah.